Everyone to October's free talk by the Sustainable Resource Committee. Today we have two guest speakers. They are twin sisters, Jane Lister Reis. I should have asked how to pronounce your name, sorry. Farmer Jane. and her sister, Margie Lister Muenzer. Sorry. They're going to discuss their children's book, Sial and the Council of Animals. And before our free talk, we like to just welcome and introduce everyone to the Sustainable Resource Committee. Karosh, do you want me to read this?
Yes, please.
Okay, so today's free talk is hosted by the Sustainable Resource Committee, which is dedicated to promoting sustainable community environments within the greater Snoqualmie Valley that seek to lean forward into the future and not only survive, but thrive. We are committed to relationship building among people and groups, as well as among people and nature. The work of this committee primarily involves supporting and connecting with farmers, educators in both academic and Indigenous cultures, and other like-minded individuals. This free informational talk is a part of a series of activities towards our goal of building a sustainable community in the Snoqualmie Valley. And the Sustainable Resource Committee is sponsored by the Baha'i Faith, and specifically the Baha'i Faith members of the King County North. And I'm going to stop screen sharing now so that Charlotte can introduce our guest speakers.
Welcome, everybody, and we really are lucky tonight to have Jane and Margie with us. The sisters grew up near Cleveland, Ohio, on the edge of a beautiful wild park. It's where they really learned to love and appreciate nature, just the natural world. They now live on opposite sides of the United States. Jane lives in Seattle with her husband, Don. Surrounded by the beauty of the Northwest, but in the city. Jane and her husband are co-owners of First Light Farm, which is located near Carnation in the Snoqualmie Valley. It's a small regenerative farm, which also runs a CSA program. And that's how I became acquainted with Jane, by joining her CSA, visiting the farm on a regular basis. In addition to the farm, Jane also teaches at North Seattle Community College. And in addition to that, she has recently started offering a 4-part series of Zoom talks that provide a framework for how to live in our world today. And I think Jane can possibly mention more about that later. I think that's going to be something that she'll offer periodically, if I'm not mistaken. Margie lives near Chapel Hill, North Carolina. She is a recent retiree. Her career was in physical therapy, and now she is, as you've just probably heard, or some of you have heard, has become even more engaged in supporting a healthy climate. She has completed a leadership training course with the Climate Reality Project. She's active in this organization, and it sounds like they're doing a lot of good work. Jane and Margie both believe, and the reason for the book that they'll be discussing tonight, that getting parents and children involved together is valuable in the process of turning around the way humans relate to the natural world and how we value that natural world. It's mutually supportive. And I have a feeling that when we get the children engaged, the parents then follow along. It seems to work that way a lot. Anyway, I'd like to now introduce Jane and Margie and let them share this with you.
All right. Well, we'll see how this works with doing this on Zoom. I've done Zoom talks by myself, but I haven't co-talked with somebody, but Jane and I kind of talked earlier about how, which parts each of us would do, but I think we agree that we both want to keep it pretty casual, and where the discussion goes, that's where we're hoping for. But I'll just make one change. Because my name is Margaret, I go by Margie, but my parents spelled it like Margie. So everybody says Margie, but I am Margie. So don't feel bad about that, Charlotte, because my whole life is being called Margie. So anyway, so Jane's going to talk a little bit later about how this whole book came to be, but I'm just going to introduce the book. I know Charlotte has seen the book, and I don't know if maybe some of you others have, but it's Seal and the Council of Animals, and it's a story of our changing climate for children and their parents. And I thought that I'd start with just the foreword of the book, because it kind of says how we chose the name Seal. And I should just back up and say that is not the pronunciation for using the language of the Duwamish and Suquamish tribes, which is the Lushootseed language. It's unpronounceable by me, but I can try. We have a link to the recording of an elder talking, saying how it's pronounced, but it's something like Sia. It's using sounds that the English language does not make. But we refer to it as Seal. And I kind of like the fact that it's like see all, that he's seeing all these things that are happening. So this is the foreword of the book. The bald eagle character in this story is named Seal in honor of Chief Seattle, the famous leader of the Duwamish and Suquamish tribes of the Pacific Northwest. Seattle is the anglicized version of Seal, which is a Duwamish word. And the following quote from Chief Seattle, spoken so long ago, rings amazingly true of the current climate emergency caused by mankind. What is man without the beasts? If all the beasts were gone, men would die from great loneliness of spirit. For whatever happens to the beasts also happens to man. All things are connected. Whatever befalls the earth befalls the children of the earth. All right, and with that, I'll turn it over to Jane.
So Charlotte already alluded to the fact that Margie and I were very privileged to grow up. Our home bordered on the Metropolitan Park, the Cleveland Metropolitan Park. That was 3,000 acres, I think, of parkland. You think that's right, Margie?
I don't know, it was pretty big. And one of the nice things is that there was a river or creek that went through it, and we were on the opposite side of the creek, and all the park roads were on the other side, so that where we were, you'd never run into anybody until you crossed the creek, and then very rarely did we see anybody when we hiked.
So we didn't know how privileged we were. I probably didn't realize it until I went to college in New York City and experienced so many people. But growing up in that area, Margie and I had 2 horses, and every day after school, we would take down the fence post and ride for hours in the woods by ourselves. And it was that immersion in the natural world that I think framed both my life and Margie's life, as well as my siblings. We're all very committed to the natural world, as were my parents. But I can just speak for myself that I think that, and I teach this in the class that I do, the Zoom class, that there are people who were born with a love for the natural world. And certainly Margie and I were born with that. And when I went to public school, Margie and I went to school long before, we graduated from high school in 1966. So there wasn't much opportunity for women at that time. So there was certainly no natural science things, no environmental science, nothing like that. So schooling took me further and further away from the natural world. And it wasn't until I started farming almost 10 years ago that that circle completed itself, and I began to come back to the natural world and to rediscover what was deep in my body and deep in my heart, which was a love for the natural world and wanting to learn everything that I could. At that time, when I was teaching at North Seattle, I was asked to design a curriculum, a sustainability curriculum for hospitals in the United States to teach green skills. And I began to do like Margie's doing now, doing the research. And I began to read and read and read. And that was probably, maybe 8, 9, 10 years ago. No, it was maybe 12 years ago. But it was then that I was first introduced to 350.org and kind of the impending climate disaster, and experienced probably what many people did experience, which is that sense of a green depression, just a sense of foreboding about the loss of the natural habitats and the water and the ocean and all these kinds of things. So probably for the past 12 or 15 years, I've been steeped in reclaiming that which is most deep in my heart, which is the natural world. So that kind of takes us up to when the book was born. And my husband and I have this really wonderful large bathroom, and he shaves and brushes his teeth while I pop myself in the bathtub and meditate. And so I have this wonderful practice of meditating in the bathtub. And one morning, as I was meditating, the entire story of Seal and the Council of Animals came to me in one story. And so I got up out of the bathtub and I put a towel around me, and I went and I called Margie and I said, Margie, we're going to write a children's book. And I'm
going to interrupt and say that what she said is, I have this idea. I have the whole story, but you're going to write it, is what she told me.
Which is the way our lives go. Margie, could you write this for me? Margie, Margie's a really good writer. And so she wasn't like won over right away. But it just so happened that she came out right before Christmas because I was going to have hip surgery. And we talked a little bit about it. And when she was returning to Chapel Hill, that's a nice 5-hour flight. And I said, well, why don't you just try? And so when she got home, she texted me and said, I have 5 chapters done. So the book literally began to flow and have life. We certainly ran into questions and obstacles and things we needed to think about, but the book has always been alive, and the story has given us great joy. And we should say that this idea of animals communicating or talking or whatever, Margie and I were raised on the stories written by, what was his first name, Margie? Anthony Burgess?
Thornton.
Thornton Burgess. And they were a collection of small books about animals in Farmer McGregor's garden patch.
Oh, yes.
So there was Danny Meadow Mouse and Old Mother West Wind and Reddy the Fox and all these different characters. And Margie and I read those books, or were read those books, over and over and over again. And I always believed with all my heart that animals had a life, that they had personalities, they could communicate, but that we were separate from that in some way. So coming around and writing the Seal and the Council of Animals was this opportunity to bring life again back to the animal kingdom. So I think Margie's going to read just a 2-minute version from the story.
Yeah, and I'll say just one of the key things in Jane coming up with her idea was that you know, it was based on the climate change issues, but how we could get children involved, and that because children usually love animals, that if we could write a story that was framed from the animals, that we felt that, or she felt that that would be a very powerful way to do it. So I'll just set up a little bit about the story, and then I'm going to read just chapter 6. But basically, Sial, the bald eagle, has been observing his territory, and this takes place somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. We don't have, you know, a specific place, just it's an imaginary. The whole book is imaginary, but he's seen all these different things that are happening and how it's becoming hard for the animals. Their habitats are changing due to increased heat or the wildfires or flooding, that sort of thing. And it gets to the point where he decides he needs to call together his council of animals, and they need to talk about how they can try and get things better. And his idea is that they need to get the humans to be involved, that they can't solve this themselves. And they don't have any kind of relationship with the humans at this point in the story. But the story goes on. I won't tell all the details, but they are able to figure out a way that each of the different animals can spell the word help. And so they do that. And then for 5 days, nothing happens. And then little Tia, one of the characters in the story, comes along. And so Tia is a 10-year-old girl who lives on the very farm where the barn swallows were creating their message. So their message was they were shaping themselves so that it looked like help on the barn roof. She loves helping her parents take care of their 8 chickens and 2 cows. But most of all, she loves her pony Brownie. On the afternoon of the 6th day, as soon as she was home from school, Tia and Brownie set off on a trail ride. Tia chose the path that led through the woods to the bridge over the river. The first time that Tia had asked Brownie to cross the bridge, the pony had been afraid, but Tia was patient with her, and now Brownie easily walks over the bridge. But on this day, the pony got a little spooky as she approached the bridge. Tia pulled back on the reins and brought Brownie to a halt. "Do you see that?" she asked her pony. "There, right in the center of the bridge." So here's a picture. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. It doesn't look very clear on my screen, but the little wiggly worms have spelled help on the bridge, and the pony is a little spooked by that. So Tia hopped down from the saddle and led Brownie closer to the strange sight. There were several dozen wiggly worms that appeared to be spelling the word help. That just can't be, thought Tia. It would be too crazy to think that the worms can spell. Tia climbed back into the saddle and gently urged Brownie to walk over the bridge. They continued down the path for a while, enjoying trotting on a nice long section of the path. As they rounded a corner, Tia called out to Brownie, "Whoa!" There were brightly colored butterflies clustered on a large bush. "No way," thought Tia. "They're spelling help too." Tia wished she had a camera with her, for who was going to believe her? She and Brownie trotted on, taking the left fork of the path that would circle back to their farm. Halfway back to the farm, Tia again stopped her pony. There were pine cones clustered on the bench. Someone had positioned them just right so that they also spelled help. "Someone is playing tricks on me," Tia said to Brownie. She was lost in thought the rest of the way home, trying to think who that could be. As she started up the long driveway to the barn, she heard some rustling and looked up, and there on the roof, the barn swallows were gathered in a crazy way so that Tia once again was able to read the word help. So what happens from there is that Tia goes and finds her dad, and they go back and look at all these signs, and then her mom comes home later and she says, "Oh, we have to get the mayor of the town involved. This is just too much." And her dad had taken pictures of all these signs. So they have this meeting with the people in the town, and there's a scientist that comes from the Fish and Wildlife department, and they figure out all these different projects that they realize that the animals are asking for help because of how their habitats are changing. And so the townspeople, do these projects, but you see what happens from the animals are noticing things like deer sees that there is some strange things appearing in the field, which are actually solar panels. And there's an owl, hooty owl, and he sees that these buses now are coming into town and picking up a lot of people and taking them who knows where, and he goes and follows them anyway. So they're trying these different projects that are saving helping with the climate change problem, and then it goes on from there. But it was very interesting to keep the story kind of in the eyes of the animals, but also try and explain carbon dioxide and all the different things that humans have done to cause all these problems, and also not to get it too scary for kids, because we had it was actually my daughter-in-law who said that there was an article she read called Tears at Bedtime, and it was basically that parents were reading these climate change books to their kids, and the kids would get just so upset about what was happening to the different animals. So it was kind of a fine line of how to make it be about a serious topic, but also keep it positive. And so that's our hope, that we did keep it positive, but showing how the animals are very appreciative of what the humans can do, and also how the humans really never thought about how they were changing the world was affecting the animals in their neighborhood. All right. Jane, do you have anything more to add to that?
No, I was just going to make a pause and just let anybody make a statement or ask a question or before we kind of move on.
I was just looking online and it says there's a companion coloring book.
Yeah.
There is. Yeah, I was going to tell about that too. I can show you the coloring book. Well, before I talk about the coloring book, I should say that, when we started writing the book, we were like, well, we wanted to have illustrations, but I love to draw, but I wasn't ready to illustrate the book. And we had no budget. And so in talking to our brothers, with one of the nice things that's happened to our family with the all the COVID changes is that we've done a family Zoom every week. And so we've got a little bit more conversations going on with our family. But one of our brothers had been, before the shutdown, had been to a funeral of a relative and had gotten reacquainted with the daughter, and turns out she was an illustrator. And so she did a lot of the illustrations, and we just felt that the illustrations lent themselves to a coloring book. And I showed you the one with the help. Let me see if there's another. Well, the one with the butterflies is really cute. Let me see if I can find that one. So here she's drawn a picture of, those are all little butterflies spelling the word help in the bushes. And I have a couple of granddaughters, and I could just see them wanting to color all these pictures. So it was just going to be an easy, we're just going to throw them together and make a coloring book. But in writing the book, we also, at one point, we were going to write a parent's guide with other activities that families could do. And but when we came to the end of the book, we just felt like that was the end that we created. We didn't want to have this extra stuff. But then in starting to put together the coloring book, we thought, well, maybe we can put activities in with the coloring book. And so that it became more of another way to get children and their parents connected to the natural world. So did I show you the coloring book? I don't think I did. So the coloring book is here. And Jane has a dear friend, Clark Parsons, who helped us put all this together, and he is very gifted in Photoshop. So at one point he said, we could add color. We were just going to have it be black and white because, it was a coloring book. And so throughout the, let me see if I can find a good example of where he colored things in. Well, this is but anyway, he put all these cute little colors into the different things, and all the things that he just kind of was able to capture these images from Andrea's drawings out of a big illustration and put them throughout the activity book. But there's about 15 different activities for the kids to get involved with that. And Andrea is again our cousin, and I haven't seen her since she was probably about 6, and she's 60 now, and she lives down in Florida. And so here's Clark is out in the Seattle area, not exactly Seattle, and Jane is in Seattle. I'm in North Carolina, and our illustrator is in Florida. And we put this whole thing together just by communicating with FaceTime and all of that, and lots of sending things to Clark. And it would have been so easy to just be there right with him, and we'd say, well, this is where we want the little coloring things or whatever, but it had to come back and forth and all of that. But the other connection that we ended up making when we were doing all this was when we were writing the story and using the name Seal, we ended up contacting the Duwamish Cultural Center just to check in to say, was this okay that we were using Seal as a name in this story? Because we realized that he was a very important figure for their tribe. And so we had a couple different conversations with Jolene Haas, who's the director of the Cultural Center, and her aunt, Cecile Hansen, is the head of the tribe. And through those conversations, we learned more about the Duwamish people and how, here their chief helped the white settlers come to the area, and then they named their city after him and basically renege on a lot of the treaties, as happened all over our country. But anyway, that was a very moving part of the book, and so we ended up adding in the author's notes a section about we want to invite parents and children to have a conversation about finding out what ancestral home they are now living on, and become more acquainted with the indigenous people in wherever they're living. So we certainly had no idea that we were going to go down that path, but it's been a very meaningful part of the story. And Jane, do you want to talk about adding the activities in the newsletter, maybe?
Yeah, I just wondered if anybody had any thoughts or feelings or comments. Yeah, Andrew.
It's wonderful to have a medium to be able to just set a discussion on climate change. It's a hard issue, but I think it should be a part of every dinner conversation that people have, and just to have a medium like that to be able to, to bring it to the attention in a way that, maybe kids can relate to more. I think that's great to do that. And then later to explain, like, how do we know, and then what's, and then also how do we change our behavior because of that. And so, but yeah, I have not seen a lot of books that really discuss it. What's the age group particularly that you set this for the book?
We think probably between like 5 and 9. I would say, the older range would read it. Jane has a little friend who said she's read it 7 times, but I envision it. My hope is that parents would read it with their children so that they would have a discussion about it. And, it would kind of depend if it was a mature 5-year-old. If it wasn't a mature 5-year-old, then maybe, you'd want to wait, kind of thing. But Sorry,
Donna,
I have a cat that she's trying to get in the door, so I'm just gonna open the door and then he won't get.
Donna, I saw your hand up. Yeah.
Well, I've read the book and I thought it was, I just really liked it. I've given it as gifts to people and that have children, and one of whom is a primary teacher as well. So, but I really like the activity book too, the coloring book, because what I thought of when I looked at that was these activities are things that the kids and their parents can do together. And I think that just reinforces it. And it made me think again, the kids will kind of lead the children. If the kids get engaged in this and the parents are helping them, it becomes a family thing. But just like Andrew and his green team, I mean, I really do think that the kids are the ones that are going to kind of lead us forward as time goes on. And the activities in that book just really are appropriate and I think would encourage that sort of thing. So it was,
And nobody speaks the truth like a child's heart.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. No, that
Oh.
was a really nice add-on. That was perfect.
Okay, Donna? Yeah.
You're muted, Donna.
It doesn't say she's muted.
Doesn't it?
I'm not muted. I don't know if you're muted or not.
There, now we hear you.
We hear you a
Okay.
little bit.
So I've already sent one birthday grand niece and nephew off to New York City. They live in Harlem. They did have to spend some COVID time in Maine in the midst of nature down there by where Camden is. And then the others are going to have it, and they are in Maine now, but they had come from Colorado to Massachusetts and now back to Maine. And I know that this is so appropriate. It's not only appropriate for them to be able to discuss this as a family, and I'm sure they will, the cousins as well as the parents, but also the fact that they live in two different, very distinct places.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's going to actually be good for that, as well as we couldn't come at a better time with COVID, where everyone is really sequestered in their home, and you want to be outside, you want to be able to experience nature wherever you are. And I'm sure that the children in New York are going to miss it terribly after having spent 9 months up in Maine. So I'm so grateful. And I had a question about, did you self-publish this book? And have you had any reviews so far? Because I could see this is going to go off like a rocket.
We are very small potatoes at this point. But I think the gift of this book, not only was it given, right? I didn't think of it, but it was given. But then the synchronicity behind it, the cousin being identified as the illustrator, and the gentleman Clark, who's the publisher. I'm on his wife's board and have gotten to know Clark, and I knew he was he had retired and had opened up his own children's publishing business, but I never put two and two together until Margie and I started this book. And then I just said, Margie, maybe we should ask Clark. And this is the kind of person he is. He only charged us for the things he didn't know how to do.
Well, and then with the fees that we did pay him go to a scholarship fund at a university. So anyway, but the way it's published is, and he was the one who knew how to do this, but I'm sure there are more than one company, but this is Ingram Spark, and you submit the document to them, and then it's a print on demand kind of a system. So unlike, I mean, I've known people that have written books and you end up with, 300 books that didn't sell or something like that. This way, it's just, we can order them, or businesses can order them, people can order them. They're listed on Amazon and Barnes and Noble online. But it's been a little bit of a challenge because of COVID that the local bookstores are only open, virtually for people to order things. So you can't have a book on display. So it's like, how do we get the word out there? And we've been working on different ways, but
We know.
Okay.
What's the bookstore, Charlotte? It's down in Redmond Square.
Oh, yeah, brick and mortar books. Well,
Yeah,
yeah, I think
they
Jane,
would carry it.
sorry?
They would carry their book, and they're also still in person open. Because
Yeah.
I actually went and got another friend who's an author the book just this week.
Thank you. That would be great.
Well,
Yeah, and they can just go to the Ingram Sparks, and they probably know about that. And then there's a way that they order it wholesale and then can sell it. Or if they would rather have us supply them the books, we could do that as well.
We used to have you come up, and Jane can be you can do book signing and do a little education in person.
Yeah.
Our friend made friends with the owners, brick and mortar in Redmond, and they promote him to all the schools because they were former school librarians. So they book him in all the schools, and now he goes all over the country. So I think Donna is right. If Jane could go down and introduce herself in the book, you might find yourself too busy visiting schools.
I'll send
Well,
my
it's
sister. She's retired.
Yeah, I have to figure out how to fly yet. I haven't figured that out. I figured maybe if they could give us hazmat suits for when we get on the plane. But it's interesting you mentioned schools, because that's something that we're kind of working on right now. With the coloring book, we had some of the activities that didn't go in the coloring book. I just had in a folder, and Jane's First Light Farm has a newsletter, and she said, now that all these families are just hanging out at home, maybe we could put some of the activities from the coloring book into the newsletter. And so we did 3 different ones of those, and that got me thinking that maybe we could expand on them and see if we could get elementary school teachers interested in using it as a reading and science activity together, that the kids would read the book, and then there are these different units of things like habitat identification, and there's one on single-use plastic, and be an energy detective in your house, different things like that. So far, we're still in the developing stages of that, reaching out to different teachers. And I've reached out to some in my area, and Jane has a good contact in the Seattle schools.
Oh, good. Well, you don't have to go there physically. You can have presence in a Zoom classroom.
Yeah.
They book you to Zoom classrooms, you wouldn't have to leave North Carolina.
Yeah. Okay. That would be great. I'd be more than happy to do that.
Margie's worked with small children her whole life as a physical therapist, and then as a physical therapist who uses horses for children with particular spinal issues.
Yeah.
So where I've always worked with adults in college age, Margie's always worked with children. So she's the perfect person. Plus, she has a science brain. I always tell people I was a humanities major.
That's a
But
nice
somebody,
combination.
it would be you, Jane, that would have to make the initial.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. Yeah. Yeah. So maybe you and I could follow up afterwards. Mm-hmm.
All right, afterwards.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
I'll do some research.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Charlotte knows how to get a hold of me.
Yeah. And just so you know too, Erla is a retired librarian, so she's a teacher as well. So she's really a good resource to be helping with something like this.
Yeah, I did get the book into the Chapel Hill Library, and I was pleased to see that it had been checked out. So, and I don't know how anybody found out about it, because again, our library, probably like yours, is just, you have to go on to the online catalog and order books. But
Andrew, I was curious about, you teach at the high school level?
Yeah, teach science at the high school.
Yeah, I was curious about climate change and how that's infiltrated the natural sciences and at the high school level.
We actually have a pretty strong bio. It's an integrated bio class that's taught our freshman year. And I just moved from teaching that last year to chemistry this year, and I teach AP environmental science and AP bio. But the freshmen, they learn about climate change. We use phenomenon-based teaching where the students develop like a complex model and they use evidence to support their claims. And it's like so we introduce them to climate change and the evidence for it. And then they work on, in our chemistry classes, we cover climate. Just Friday, I covered with AP Environmental Science, paleoclimate. So looking at past climate history up to the future. And then we've had a guest speaker. He is a former environmental chair for the United Nations chapter in Seattle. And he came and he talked on Earth Day. And we had all of our science classes come and listen. And it was pretty sobering. I mean, but it's better harsh, biting truths than warm, comfortable delusions, you know. And that was a forum that got students interested in like the green team. So they're interested in climate.
Thanks. Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So we've been trying to do whatever we can to get the word out. I don't know if any of you attended the Youth Climate March that happened a year ago. It was one of the most amazing experiences I did. I took the day off and I wasn't able to get the students out from school, but there were thousands of youth that were on the streets in Seattle, and they were marching because they really feel that their future is being compromised and that, you know, that our decisions are affecting their future, and that it was awesome to see how empowered they were too. And you see like Greta, who's just amazing. And it's, you know, where the youth, they really want to know. And when I first started teaching about climate change, I remember showing an inconvenient truth. So that dates me, how long that was back there. And how, I mean, I had parents that were sending me nasty grams and I was a target, and how it's changed. I mean, the paradigm has changed where, you know, students aren't questioning, you know, the science behind it, but I'm trying to come up with positive ways that they can be empowered and that they can take action. And so you need to start them young. And so this is really great to be able to start getting the discussions going and, you know, help, you know, in terms of getting these, you know, to get our young generation connected with nature.
Yeah,
thank you.
Wonderful. Margie, Jennifer Dwyer from Hollyhock, where First Light Farm we get our wonderful eggs. Thank you, Jennifer. Wrote and says there are a lot of homeschoolers now, maybe write up an elementary environmental studies curriculum as a PDF that can be downloaded through your Etsy shop and have the book and coloring book as companions to the curriculum. Have you seen Gare Bear's Wild Wonders? He's a young man who has a great program based here in the Valley. He would probably love to promote your book. And then she gave the Facebook page.
I saw the homeschooler. I didn't see the other. So do you have that name, Jane?
Yeah. I can think of a lot of ways to keep Margie working.
Yeah, you do.
Margie says, I call her every morning, well, what do you have to do today? And she says, well, I'm going to practice my flute. And I go, well, we have another newsletter to write. So, Margie, get to work on the elementary environmental studies curriculum. Yeah.
Well, I'm waiting to hear if you have any more inspiration for another book. I can see other books coming from the two of you. I think you need to meditate on that a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. Back to the bathtub.
Yeah, there
Yeah,
you go.
since I've had my hip surgery, I haven't gotten back into the bathtub. I've mastered the shower, but not the bathtub. I wondered, Mary and Miriam and Marguerite and Joy, just, what your thoughts are, because you've been so patient and quiet and just listening. If you had any suggestions or thoughts or comments for Margie and me about our book.
I think that since Greta hit the news wires and has enamored so many of us, including my grandchildren, with the story of and with her challenge, that it's really a hot topic now. And so I think really anything that you have to offer that you can create that furthers the conversation, that gives new ideas or suggestions of how to gather a consensus and move towards a project, something like that. I think it's really, people are seeking that. So I think it's a hot topic. And I encourage you to do more.
Mary.
Go back to the bathtub.
That's funny.
Well, I was raised on Disneyland and all the Disney stories and movies. And so I have no trouble with the animals talking at all. And I think I spent most of my youth drawing. And I think it's wonderful. I don't get discouraged. Just keep going. Don't try to do too much. Just concentrate on what you do best.
Thank you.
And adults love those kind of books anyway. I mean, it's not just the children. Adults love to read those books. So you got a lot of, probably a senior audience is what I'm saying.
Yeah, grandparents, I think, reading the book to their grandkids.
Yeah, nursing homes and
Margie, do you have the two little critters there?
I do.
Oh, that's right.
So I just thought, well, wouldn't it be fun if we had some little stuffed animals that could go along with the book? And I found this wonderful company called Stuffed Safari, and they tend to carry more wild, animals. I mean, I think there were some dogs and cats too, but mostly wild animals. So this is Seal, the leader of the pack, and they will make these little neckerchief things for them. So that's Seal. And then I couldn't make all the animals work out, but then there's Hootie the owl. And Chatty Gray Squirrel is one of the characters.
Oh, that's darling.
Chatty with her tail. And Braveheart Black Bear is essential in the story. He's the one who goes off and finds this bunny that teaches him how to spell the word help. But the funniest thing is that Jane has been having the book and coloring book for sale at the farm, and I sent her some of these animals, and this is the hot seller. It's Polly, this is Jolly, I think, but Polly and Jolly Mice are in the story. And we thought, well, the kids would want to get the eagle because that's the main character, but then, and Jane said one little boy really wanted Braveheart Black Bear, but then his mom said, well, let's go pick vegetables and then come back. And then he spied the little mouse behind. And so we've had to order more and more of the little mice.
I got this at a arts fair, and this lady had all these wonderful, they're finger puppets.
Oh,
Kids
wow.
love finger puppets. You could have the whole puppet show going on, telling the story.
Yeah, well,
it's darling. Isn't that cute? That's a hedgehog.
That is very cute.
My question for you two is the publisher who helped you do the self-publishing, and I'm aware of the, you know, I forget what the name of it is, but where you order, so it's on demand basically, so you don't have to do a lot of stock. But did he give you any help in terms of how to market it, like to contact book distributors or people who specialize in children's books that might, you know, buy copies to try and market for you?
He was pretty clear that that was not going to be his role, but he knew so much. Like I mean, they have the ISBN number with the, you know, Library of Congress, and you know, he knows all the things that the hoops that we had to jump through, and you know how the pages are set up and everything, and how to submit it to this company, and then the print company, and then it was originally in his name, and then he had it transferred to us so that, you know, we're in charge of ordering the books and that sort of thing. But we would have, I mean, my knowledge of publishing is through Shutterfly photo books. I did those for my grandkids, but this was a whole nother level, and I don't know if we would have gotten to the point that we're at if we didn't have that contact.
Ingram, right, a wonderful distributor. I think they call Ingram more like a jobber, and Ingram will be the sole distributor sometimes for a whole school district. Or, you know, as a librarian, we used Ingram, and so, you know, it has these fantastic databases, so you could put in climate change, and you could put in your specification, what age group, and then you get a list of books and their prices, and it's just a finger punch away. Once you decide as a librarian that that's a title you want, and then it just gets added to your list of purchases, and so I think Ingram is a wonderful into the in distributing your books.
Okay.
Yeah, it's nice that, you know, that say, for example, you know, like our local bookstore, they can just order them themselves through Ingram Sparks. And if it was, you know, any big, you know, like a little gift shop might just buy the book straight from us, but any chain store would want to go through the wholesaling kind of a thing. And so it's set up with that.
Who's the person who just sent the group chat? It doesn't have a name. There's Donna who's saying, where can I order the animals? I would like to get them for Christmas. But then there's somebody who wrote in, not a name, possibly have a unit studies pack that includes 3 simple unit studies and the book and coloring book, but also sell the unit studies as PDF downloads individually. This type of thing is really popular right now and easy to do from home with a home computer.
Oh, it's Jennifer. Okay.
Oh, Jen. Okay. Jennifer, I'm going to contact you. Thank you.
And in terms of the little animals, you were the one that asked about that. Yeah. So because of, you know, at one point, except for Jane selling them out at First Light Farm, because we have to do shipping, we decided that it would be simpler just to tell people, you know, if they're interested in the animals, they can just order them from the Stuffed Safari. And I have a document that I could email you and anybody else who's interested that tells you exactly which animals, you know, because they have like probably 10 different mice. And we found out by trying to order one that was less expensive that it was not very cute at all compared to the one. So, and also the size of the font and everything for the little neckerchief things if you wanted to do that. So, yeah, if you want to write your email, do you know how to do the chat? You could add your email to the chat and I can send that to you.
Are we, Damaris?
Donna.
that we could put that information on the screen. The talks are being recorded too, so that people can come back and pull up the talks and look at them at a later time. So I'm just wondering if there's a way that we could put that ordering information online. I don't know anything about how to do any of this stuff, but is that
Well,
possible?
maybe maybe after the recording is done, Jane and Margie can email me with the links that they would like to have included with the YouTube video. So under the description for the video, we could have how to order the books, and the stuffed animals could be included in the YouTube video description.
That sounds
And
great.
whatever contact info you want in the video description, we can add it there.
You know what?
And then people don't have to like pause the show and try to write something down. So.
You know what's exciting to me, listening to Andrew talk about Mount Sinai High School and Margie talking about the preschoolers and the young children and stuff, is that we've never, at least in my experience, involved children and young people in determining our future.
Yeah.
And to acknowledge that they not only have the right to be informed, but to listen to them and to encourage them to share their ideas and their hopes and dreams. And, you know, in with these children and young people are future leaders and change makers. And so I guess for me, I'm very moved tonight by thinking about respecting young people. And Margie's in my book is reaching, you know, 5-year-olds and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9, but all the way up into high school and the early years of college. And so I'm very moved by tonight's conversation about that. It gives me hope. I was telling someone today I'm reading Sherry Mitchell's book. If anybody knows it, it's called Sacred Instructions. She's an Indigenous woman and also a lawyer. And she has the 10-10-10-80 rule. And 10% of your time, she says, is to look squarely at the suffering that's going on right now in the world. And 10% of your energy to address that. And 80% of your energy to envision the world that you want it to become. And I think the hopes and dreams of our new world lie in the hearts of children and young people. They know, and I don't think we give them voice. I don't think we give them a platform. And so I'm really touched by, you know, the people who are here tonight. And you know, it's like the young people are here with us. You know, I look around and most of us look sort of senior.
Yeah, sort of. A little bit. Not all of us.
Yeah. But, you know, I always wanted to retire and form an organization called Boomerang, where people our age would listen to young people and so give them the resources they need to do the work that they need to do. You know, it seems like we're here to help them become who they are. So hopefully planting this little seed that animals communicate, they need our help, that we share this earth together, and that as we work together to protect our air and water and habitats and biodiversity, that you know, we can begin to make change. So thank you everyone for tonight. It was very, very moving for me.
Well, you know, it's
I'm so
really
grateful for my sister.
You're a good team, you are.
And I miss being able to come out. I usually come out at least once in the summer. Our birthday's in December, so I'm usually out there around that time. But the last couple summers, I think I've managed to come out twice during the summer. And you know, I joked with Jane that I'd have to make up stories about what I did in Seattle, because I used to, you know, say, oh, we went to the San Juan Islands, or we climbed, you know, at Rattlesnake Lake, and, you know, we took a ferry or whatever, but the last few summers has been, well, I weeded the spinach or something like that.
There was one thing I wanted to ask in passing. One of the times when I was at the farm, Jane, you mentioned that the farm actually came into being because you felt so strongly about educating kids about the environment. Could you say something about that? I mean, I wanted to know more about how that really happened.
It's really families. Margie and I grew up with a father who was a very gifted gardener. My dad, it was said about my dad that he could just throw a seed and it would flourish anywhere. So we grew up with that. And it wasn't until I was doing the sustainability work in the hospitals that I realized that most people had no idea how healing the soil is for the body, or what spending time out in the natural world does for the soul. And so First Life Farm came about because we wanted to create a space for families and children to feel free and to run, to explore, to be. So we've stayed little and we've stayed pretty private. We're always surprised when people find us. But families are really free to walk and to be and to sit by the river. And so we hope it's a place to explore the habitat and the natural ecosystem of the Snoqualmie Valley and the beautiful river that our farm borders on.
And to watch the excitement of like a little boy pulling out a carrot for the first time, you know, and you just don't know, is it going to be a big carrot? Is it going to be a little carrot? It's just, you know, amazing that there, you know, so many children have never had the opportunity to see where potatoes grow and where green beans grow and all of that.
Yeah. Or to walk in a tomato house and just eat as many cherry tomatoes as one can possibly shove in their mouth. I just love that. Yeah. This parent comes back and says, "Oh, my son ate cherry tomatoes." I'm like, that makes me so happy.
Yeah.
Right? Fresh, healthy vegetables. Yeah. From the earth herself.
Mm. You all are doing such great work, and thank
So
you.
all are you. This is a beautiful group, Charlotte and Damaris and Korish. Yeah, beautiful group.
Thank you. We're the sustainability committee is getting a lot of support from, you know, the Baha'i community, but we're also finding a lot of receptivity among the farmers and Andrew and his students, when we've been able to be there on the few occasions, you know, or be involved with, just to see what they're doing. And with the members of the Snoqualmie tribe, we're just, you know, we're finding that these communities are just wonderful, and they're such rich, you know, they just really enrich this whole area. We're so fortunate to be here, I think, and yeah, the work that you're doing is just adding to that richness anyway. Thank you all. And Andrew, thanks so much for coming and sharing too. And truly, I just, you know, I think we all feel hopeful just hearing what you all have to say about what you're doing and working with the kids. And because it can be so dismal if all you hear are the headlines in the paper or on the evening news about the climate. But really, there's so much good that's happening, and the kids really will, given the mentorship and the guidance and the support, will be the ones that will lead us out of this, I think. Anyway, that's enough.
And other countries too. I've learned through the Climate Reality Project training. I mean, you know, some amazing work being done in Africa and places where you would think that they would be way behind us, but they are actually way ahead of us in a lot of ways in terms of how they're dealing with things.
I need to hear more about that. You know, the other night, just one more little thing, we watched, and maybe the rest of you have seen this already, but we watched the documentary Kiss the Ground, Kiss the Earth.
Oh, Kiss the Ground. It's Kiss the Ground.
Yeah, so it was about the regenerative farming, which is what First Light Farm does too. And that too is really encouraging and hopeful and positive, and that's happening around the world also, right?
Yeah, and I just read a book recently that you might be interested in checking out. It's called The Reindeer Chronicles by Judith Schwartz, I think is her last name. But certainly if you look up Reindeer Chronicles, but it goes, each chapter goes to a different place in the world where they're doing these projects that they feel that they're healing the earth. And it's a lot of work about the desertification that's been happening because of climate change. And you probably know this, Andrew, once the water cycle is messed up, and I didn't know much about the water cycle, but I find it amazing, but they're able to actually, and it touched on it a little bit in the Kiss the Ground movie, the area out in China where they've actually taken a desert and made it green again. And there is a movement called ecological restoration camps, and they have, they're trying to get young people, not as young as high schoolers, I don't think, but young people that can come and learn about how to restore the earth. And they said that they kind of realized that maybe trying to convince people that didn't care about climate change that we need to do something was bumping against the wall. But let's teach the people that want to fix the earth how to do it. And that's what these ecological restoration camps are. So I found that like, wow, that's just so amazing.
Yeah. Margie wrote me and said, I want to be 20 years old again. I want to go.
Yeah, I want to go spend time at one of these camps.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I mean, I grew up always loving nature, but I sat there and watched them take the tops off mountains in order to get to the coal and all that, and like why didn't we do more when we were young? So
no,
again, more power to the young people that are saying we have to do something different.
Well, are we have any more discussion, or are we? Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing and the suggestions from people too. It's been,
yes, we appreciate that.
It's been rich. It's been inspirational. Thank you. Thank you so much for everybody for doing their part. That's what it takes, I guess.
So nice to meet you. Yeah.
Thank you everyone for attending. This is Kurosh. We did record this session, and Damaris and I will work together to make the recording available to anyone. And as Damaris suggested, we can put information about ordering the book, about ordering the animals and everything on that announcement, so that people who are interested and who attended can access those things. Also, if you know someone who wanted to attend but wasn't able to, you can forward the link to the recording so that they can enjoy all the things you've shared with us this evening. So those are the things you can look forward to.
Thank you. Thank you.
That sounds great. Thanks, Krish.
Sure.
Thank you so much. And Jane will be looking forward to seeing you at the farm. And Margie, it's been nice getting to know you. Hope to continue that. And Andrew, we're still thinking we'd like to get out there and pull some more ivy one of these days. Maybe some of us.
I was there, and where you guys did the planting, the Sitka spruce are growing tall and they're thriving, and the sword fern are doing well. And
wonderful.
We're I pulled morning glory this morning a couple hours, and so it's persisting. Yeah.
We need to get out and help you out somehow. Okay. Well, everybody have a good evening and take care and be well.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Sure.